Hello, and welcome to another edition of the Book Review Blog. I am a book reviewer, and today we're going to review the book The Bachman Books by Stephen King. Back when, in like the 70s, when Stephen King first kind of established himself as a writer, he had a deal with his publishing company. I believe he was working maybe for Doubleday or some publisher like that. And the problem was that the Doubleday people were saying, okay, you can only produce so many books, or we're only going to let you produce so many books. But then Stephen King had so many books that he wanted to produce and to write, and so he developed this pseudonym named Richard Bachman, and under Richard Bachman he was able to produce 4 novels in the late 70s and possibly the early 80s. And then somebody found out that Stephen King was Richard Bachman and blew his cover and, all that. But unfortunately, I wasn't really born yet or knowing about how this happened. But anyway, I happened to come across this book, and I'm glad that I did, and I read it, and I'd like to review it. So the first book is named Rage, and this book is about a high school student named Charlie Decker, and he has been, it's like a May afternoon, and he's sitting in his high school class, and he gets called to the principal's office, and he and the principal have a discussion about something that Charlie did a while ago, where basically Charlie physically abused or beat up another teacher. And basically, it's a whole big kind of scuffle, and I think Charlie is basically suspended. But he walks back to class, and when he opens the door, before he gets back into his class, he goes into his locker, and gets out a backpack which has a gun in it and a bunch of shells, and goes and lights his locker on fire, which is fun. The first fun thing he does. And then second, he goes back into his classroom, and his teacher asks him for a pass or something. And so he raises his gun and shoots his teacher. And so then he basically takes his whole class hostage. And there is another teacher who's shot, and basically he's like, okay, class, this is now, we had class before, but now our new class session is starting, and we're getting it on. And basically what it is he's just going to kind of take over the establishment and kind of just kind of assume kingship, or assume that he is in charge. And, I mean, obviously this kid has mental disabilities or some sort of mental disability. But anyway, so, I mean, it's a story where, most of the kids in his class, behave. There is one who gives him trouble. But basically, through this book, he's telling his students or his classmates about his life, and how there's a couple of instances, mostly with Charlie's father, how he kind of became the way that he is on this May morning. So, anyway, this book is no longer in publishing, understandably, because actually what happened was there was a school shooting in maybe the 90s or something, or in the 80s, and the kid who did the shooting had the book The Rage in his backpack. So that kind of freaked Stephen King out, and so he took it away from publishing. So unfortunately, I mean, and I don't even know if you can find a thing of the Bachman books, maybe on eBay or something, but even if they would make Bachman books again, they probably wouldn't put Rage in it. So good luck finding it. It was a pretty good book. Actually, it was kind of funny because I started reading it while I was substituting in a high school classroom, so that was kind of a freaky moment. So anyway, the next book that is in this thing is called The Long Walk, and that is, I guess, based in present day, kind of, but it's kind of a dystopian era. Um, and the premise of the Long Walk is that they take 100 boys from all over the country and they walk from basically the Maine Canada border to Boston. And it's a contest, and if you have to walk at a minimum of 4 miles an hour. If you go below 4 miles an hour, you get a warning. And if you get 4 warnings in the midst of about 4 hours, you get shot. And the prize for the last boy standing, basically, is like all the money in the world and any prize that you want. You get a boatload of money and anything else you want. Well, the story focuses on a boy named Ray Girardi, and he is part of this long walk. And so, he's walking along, and there's other boys in this thing that you kind of meet and you get to know. Like, there's one name, the one who kind of latches to Girardi a lot is a boy named all his name is McVries. That's his last name. I believe his first name is Peter, but I'm not sure. It's like a boy novel, so everybody is known by their last name. There's one boy named Stebbins who you never really know much about through the book because he just kind of hangs out in the rear of the line. And every time that Ray talks to him, he's kind of weirded out by Stebbins, so he kind of leaves it alone. And there's a bunch of other boys, but, like, you know them, but then some you don't know because they end up being shot. So, there's possibly like 100 characters in this thing. But anyway, unfortunately, it's not based in first person, but unfortunately, you kind of know who's going to win once you read this and kind of figure it out. One of the things about this book is that as this walk progresses, the boys kind of lose their mind, kind of, and they become, like, insane, and they are like, okay, everybody's coming after us, and everybody's, like, going to get us, and this whole long walk is televised, and it's very well known in the country where along the roads, there's spectators, and when somebody gets shot, instead of, the audience or the spectators freaking out, they cheer. So again, it's very dystopian, like, very something that, I definitely wouldn't want to be a part of and definitely wouldn't want to live in a world where that happens. In my head, it's kind of like the Hunger Games in a way where, again, it's a contest. They're not fighting, the boys are not fighting with each other, but they're fighting against, the establishment type thing, and people do die. So I liked that one pretty well. Again, as far as like dystopian fiction goes, I can kind of take it or leave it, because it's becoming really, really popular. So I know that I'm going to read, more and more books about it. So, anyway, the next book is called Roadwork, and it focuses on a middle-aged man named Bart Dawes, and he lives in a town. I don't believe it ever is named. He lives in a town with his wife, Mary, and they presently have no children. They had a son, but he died. And what's happening in Bart's town is that there's a road that's being constructed, and the road is going to go through where his house currently is and where Bart works, which is he works at a laundromat. And so basically Bart has gotten word that he has to move. His work has already been or made arrangements to move, so he doesn't really have to worry about that, but he really has to worry about his house. And the problem is that Bart is really doing nothing about it. He tells Mary that he's been looking at houses and he has leads on houses and things like that, but as an audience that he's not doing anything about it, and he'd much rather complain and kind of build ideas in his head where you know, he's going to like take down, it's another kind of take down the establishment part book. And so what Bart does is he ends up really kind of screwing up things at work, where he kind of, it's like one of those like getting fired quitting type things, where before he's able to get fired, he resigns, and so he has no job now. And again, telling his wife Mary that, oh, I have no job, but I'm having an interview and I'm getting work and things like that. And so finally Mary kind of realizes that he is not doing anything about it, and so she leaves him. And unfortunately, that leaves Bart by himself with his thoughts, and again, of going along and figuring out how he's going to stop this road construction from happening. And he does get in with sticky characters, like mob-related characters who can help him. And somehow he has secured 2, like, massive guns. I'm not a gun person. I don't know if these guns are really, or, you know, real or futuristic or false, but if you are a gun person and you read it, maybe you'd be able to recognize these. Like, these are like really big guns, and because the person that sells them to Bart is like, oh, you're really doing some hunting, you can hit like 10 antelope with this, like, one bullet. So and anyway, Bart also secures explosives, and there's a big showdown at the end of the day, because he has until January 20th to move. And the book is in kind of a month or a day process, where, like, it starts off at, like, maybe, like, November something, 1973, and the last entry is on January 20th, 1974. So, I'm not going to tell you how it ends. It's just kind of a fun way how to end. Anyway, the last book in this book thing is called The Running Man, and The Running Man focuses on a man named Ben Richards, who is 28 years old, and he's married to a wife named Sheila, and they have a daughter named Kathy. And Kathy is about 18 months old, and Kathy has pneumonia. And unfortunately, this is, written, I think it was written in, like, 1980 or 1981, maybe the late 70s, I'm sorry. But, it's a futuristic novel where it's set in 2025, so it's even futuristic than 2014. But anyway, in 2025, there are game shows out there where they focus on survival. Again, it's kind of also like the Hunger Games, but the game that Ben plays is different, and Ben plays the game called The Running Man, where if he survives this game, they pay him every hour that he's able to survive. And so Ben is doing this so that his wife and daughter will be able to live, and they'll be able to provide money for his daughter's medical bills and to get her medication. And I don't remember exactly, but if he survives so many days, then he wins. I forget how many days, or I don't remember if it's really stated. But anyway, and basically this game is that all he does is kind of run and stay alive and stay hidden. So that, I mean, there's people out there, they're called hunters, and they are out there to kill him. And if he dies, well, then he dies. And, obviously, and, I mean, his wife and his daughter do get the money that he was getting, every so often, but, you know, obviously they don't get any more if he dies. And another part of this is that I don't think he's on 24/7 on this show, but he does have to make videos of himself and send it to the games commission, that's in charge of this game, so that they know that he's still alive. And it's a really kind of nail-biter thriller because, like, there's a lot of times where he's stuck, and he obviously can't take a plane or take a train or anything with his own identification, or else he'll be caught and he'll be killed. So, I mean, he develops different IDs, and he coerces people into helping him and things like that. So it's a really good book. Again, I'm not like Roadwork. I'm not going to tell you how that ends. But that's it for this novel. One of the things that I've noticed about when Stephen King writes as Richard Bachman, it's very dark. I mean, it's not like typical Stephen King scary. It's not like supernatural, like rabid dogs or ghost cars or telekinesis and things like that. It's not that. It's horror in like a darker level, where, I mean, all four of these books were kind of like sticking it to the establishment type of thing, and in more ways than one. So anyway, that's it. The next book I'm going to read is also a Richard Bachman original, or as Stephen King wrote as Richard Bachman. It's called Thinner. And that's it. And I bid you farewell and happy reading.